Cool. So I think the easiest place to start is looking at sort of my notes, the little tips that I had from my professor the other day, just to figure out what actually needs to be here. I mean, all the information that I've learned is sort of committed into this lattice work of everything. I just need to scope it and pull a subset. So tomorrow when I write the essay, I just need to pull up this block here. Okay, prima facie duties will be on the essay. Cultural relativism will distinguish between divine communal theory, natural law theory, make qualitative distinctions between the two greatest happiness principles by Mill and Bentham. Weakness of utilitarianism. Okay. I mean, these could all be their own headers, except I don't want all the commentary. Okay, easiest way to pull is to pull this up. Click for references. All right, we're just looking at all the stuff that I have. I usually like to have multiple definitions of any specific piece of idea, because it kind of like helps me figure out like what things are and gives me different versions to work with. So I'm just gonna like copy them and just gonna plonk them here. So just to give everyone more an idea of what's going on right now, I'm pretty much just putting together notes for my essay exam tomorrow. You sit through multiple lectures and stuff, but at the end of the day, like, there's only so many things you really need to know. And see, the issue with essay exams and why I've never really done very well with them is because like I'm under tremendous amount of pressure to like try to bring stuff out of my memory, and doing it remotely and having Rome as a tool has really changed the game for me, and I think it has really elevated my game. But yeah, anyways, I'm just kind of putting together the notes I need for tomorrow. So the moment the essay prompts drop, I could just get right to work, and I don't have to spend time roaming around. Although I do suspect that I will end up doing that anyways. Blah blah blah. Aquinas. I don't think, do we have Aquinas here? Doesn't look like it, but you never know. I'm just gonna like put it right here. I'm just gonna look at Aquinas very quickly. Aquinas' Light of Reason, God's creation. This is natural law theory, so I think it might be worth just putting a mention here. I mean, I might be asked to make a little comparison between why cultural relativism rejects natural law theory rejects cultural relativism. You never know. Claim blah blah blah. Yeah, so seems like might touch a little bit of universalist moral principles. I want to use a bot for this. Universalist. I can't spell. Okay. Okay. Is there an easy way out? Because sometimes I have these definitions. Great. There you go. Make you blah 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 blah. Yeah. So yeah, I have these definitions, and then I could just like create some examples of where certain ethical principles are that are also universal principles. Just makes the claim. No. Okay. I think we're good. Greatest happiness principle makes the claim too. That whatever that is most moral has the most utility. So universal principle. Great. Excellent. All right, time to go back to whatever I was looking at, which is I believe it was cultural relativism. Let's see if there's anything else over here I need. Nope. I think we're good. Monistic cultural norms and public opinion. I think it's covered by this definition. Amazing. Okay, great. Cool. This is accomplished. Define and distinguish between divine command theory and natural law theory. I believe they are underneath an umbrella of religious views of ethics. Perfect. And what I really want to put on over here is divine command theory, natural law theory, and I think at some point I would have already written a little distinction between the two theories. So let's see if I actually wrote anything. You know what? Let's just pull the definitions first. I think it'll be pretty clear once we have them side by side. Let's see. See, the great thing about these little color tags that I have is I could just skim and see if I've ever written a definition. Actually, this is a definition. I don't know why I didn't mark it. Definition. Cool. Yeah, you guys might have probably noticed that I have a little bit of an issue with sort of deciding when to use pages and when to use blocks. I'm trying to use more of blocks right now because it seems like the direction of where Rome is heading, but you guys would definitely see some conflicting strategies here in terms of organizing information. All right, so again, we really do want to make a distinction between divine command theory and natural law theory, and usually what I like to do is to just write it, essentially. Just going to copy this, define and distinguish. All right, so divine command theory. And usually the examples really help, and I think I've had some of the examples, and I'm going to pull them up very quickly, but I can recall them off memory, but it helps a little bit. So the story of Genesis, of Abraham's sacrifice of his son, basically is a good example of divine command theory. Asserts that an act becomes right if and only if God approves of it. And then I'll just put an example. This does not look ergonomic at all. If only God approves of it. Forget it. I'm just gonna nest this in, and I probably know what this is for. Yeah, it becomes right if and only if God approves of it. Natural law theory states that God approves of something because it is already moral. So this is actually what Aquinas talks about earlier just now when I was very confused as to when I actually talked or mentioned about Aquinas, and that is that the whole nature versus nurture debate, I believe Aquinas aligns very nicely in nature. So he basically believes that God has created humans to be moral, and therefore, as long as we live according to the love of God, then everything we do will be right. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's at least my my interpretations of that. These laws are inherently not coupled to action. Precepts contribute to speculative reason, truth is practice, theory, it's universal laws in terms of practical matters. I don't like any of these definitions. It's not going to be very useful. It's not going to be very useful in the essay itself because they're all, pretty much just convoluted ways of explaining very simple ideas. You know what? I think I like this, but I'm just gonna add whatever I just said before. Aquinas believes that as a result of God's creation, we have goodness and value imbued into us, just as long as we commit ourselves to the faith of God. I don't know. It's probably not the most accurate reading, but my my focus here is really to carve out and create good touch points that I can hit when I'm writing this essay to get my talking points out. All right, cool. So I think that's done based on the this little lecture the other day where he kind of just gave out all the stuff that we should know about. I don't think we should be too fussed. See, I have a little bit of trouble with my CSS, so I have this Rome theme that allows me to kind of have, all my stuff on the sidebar sideways. But I think they just changed the CSS a couple days ago, and I'm stuck with this single column thing again, and it's not great, but I'll fix it at some point, just probably not today. All right, so the next thing we really need to talk about is utilitarianism, and I believe I have a blog about it. Utilitarianism. Okay. Do I have it? No. The best way to look for it, I believe, is maintaining this index pages kind of pays its own dividends. There we go. Just paste that there. Utilitarianism and Consequentialism. There are two formulations, mostly Jeremy Bentham's greatest happiness principle and Mill's improvement on that. Key distinctions between both. Key distinction. You know what? I should really be typing down all of my thoughts. Key distinction between both John Stuart Mill's greatest happiness principle. Greatest happiness principle and Jeremy Bentham's original formulation is that Mill believes that intellectual pleasures are more valuable above all. In fact, he does say that. So basically, Bentham's greatest happiness principle does actually encapsulate, prescribing moral rights and virtues to what they call non-human animals, but because basically tries to make the case for what was I about to say? Try to make the case for pleasures being the essential metric that would be judged against, different factors to be made within a decision. I'm probably not saying that right, but that's okay. I love thinking out loud. Great, love this distinction. I actually wrote the distinction right. That's kind of funny. Bentham's perspective on exercise of GHP is to afford anyone who is sentient being the ability to vote. Okay, Mill further qualifies that all pleasures are equal, and hence the intellectual pleasures should always be prioritized. An interpretation of this might be that Mill does think that not everyone should be given, not everyone should be afforded an equal right to vote. I mean, he does say that intellectual pleasure should be prioritized, but this is just an interpretation. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I've not been doing this philosophy thing for that long. Do I want this in my notes? That's the real thing. Further qualifies that not all pleasures are equal. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna take this one because I feel like this is useful. I feel like the distinctive factor should be included in my notes. GHP perspective on blah 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 makes a claim to utilitarianism. Yeah, that's true. Do I want it here? Okay, yes, I do want it here, just in case that came up. How Jeremy Bentham. Oh, this is great. How he came up with GHP makes the case that during the rich 18th century would be affected by the suffering of the people of lower classes. He emphasizes what is best for sentient beings is important. Maybe not. Utilitarianism morally is being pleasured by GHP. Happiness synonymous with pleasure, and happiness synonymous with pain. Yes, I want this. Because essentially one of the things that I need to do when I define GHP is to take the definition. So this professor is definitely analytical, approaches philosophy in an analytical way, and that is kind of like constructing things to their their little axioms and using the definitions to assess, to see the world, essentially. And this is in contrast with like other forms of philosophy practice, which might be more continental, where you're talking more about subjectivism, how things kind of like intersect. They're still like buckets. Because I mean, if you look at these things, right, like cultural relativism, religious views, universal moral principles, natural law, utilitarianism. I mean, at some level, they kind of intersect. They kind of overlap a little bit, but I don't think analytical philosophers are necessarily that interested in that sort of conversation. It's not like they don't think it matters. At least it's just not something they think about. I mean, the two schools of thought. I was just introduced to this two schools of thoughts like fairly recently, so I don't know that much about it. So what we want to do over here is kind of break apart, right? Just based on the analytical philosophers toolkit. Not really the way I think, but it's the way my professor grades. So you gotta get in line. Is to kind of figure out how to break down this definition. So if you're saying that a GHP defines morality as whatever that gives greatest happiness to the greatest number of sentient beings, you need to qualify what happiness is. Greatest number is fairly self-evident, so I don't really need notes for that. So happiness is synonymous with pleasure in this scenario, but and that's Jeremy Bentham's definition. But Mills qualifies intellectual pleasures as a type of pleasure that's above all other kind of pleasures. So I just need the definition of sentient beings. I believe I have it somewhere. There you go. Sentient beings capable of feeling joy and pain. So I'm just gonna grab this and plonk it here. You know what? I'm just gonna cheat a little bit. This is not. I should really just be modifying this, but whatever. Blah 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 blah. Okay, great. I am good. Exercise still 41 centimeters. Okay, we've been through this. Coined by Jeremy Bentham, worked on refined by Mill. Because initial persona does not involve. Really? Now you see how I just contradicted myself. This is how unaware I am even of philosophy. It's great. Standard definition of GHP, because the initial principle does involve non-human animals, because sentient beings does include them. Standard does include because the initial principle does non-human. Okay. So what I'm saying over here, so I was right. So Mill came up with this, refined GHP. It's called Utilitarianism. I believe that's the name of the essay. He came up with it because he didn't feel like we should extend the same moral worth to what they call non-human animals, which is different from humans, apparently. I don't know. These people have a ton of definitions. I'm not very interested to get into the little nitty-gritty. I mean, at the end of the day, these are just semantics. So I'm just going to take this, really, and kind of like put it here, too, so that I know why he came out with the GHP. Why Mill came out with utilitarianism, or at least refined the definition of GHP. Looks like I really didn't have to do all this. I've already done that earlier. That's the great thing about using a tool like Rome. Like when you're sorting through your notes, you kind of unknowingly go through some of the idea organization that you need to do to help you understand what you're reading. Okay, moving on. Great, got that down. GHP, great. Be aware of weakness of utilitarianism. This is definitely something I wrote before. There we go. I do focus on equality and impartiality. I do focus on consequences, ignorance, individual integrity, or personal responsibility. It consists of using person's means. Yes. So this is directly in conflict with what we'll probably deal with right after this, which is Immanuel Kant's moral philosophy, which is how you should never use persons as more of a means, as an end. Wait, no. Kant's philosophy is about how you shouldn't use humans as a means, and you should consider them as ends. Yeah, categorical imperative. In a way that treat humanity never simply as a means. You know what's interesting? I think I have a head page. Ends versus means. So right now I'm actually thinking of I'm actually thinking of things that I might have done in the past outside of means based. Yeah, like things I've done in the past not related to necessarily ethics itself, but I've definitely been thinking a lot of the lines between using someone as a means versus using them as an ends. And I think I thought I had a head page on this, but turns out I did not. I think the closest one I have is this instrumental versus value rationality. Let's see. By the way, this is not like whatever I'm doing right now is not actually that directly related to what I need to study, but I just wanted to have some of these ideas in just in case that I can use. Blah, blah, blah. Take charge once life. I actually like this. This might actually be useful. Okay, just plonk that here. Gotta be a good Rome user and focus on the things that I'm looking at before the graph gets too unwieldy and says what it should be. I like this. This might be useful. Utilitarianism is definitely very aligned with that. Empiricism, maybe? No. Okay, never mind. All right, done. Moving on. Don't want to spend too much time on this because I feel like it's not really gonna materialize. So for those who are just starting to join us, I mean, I don't really expect anyone to kind of like watch me sort through my notes. Kind of feels like something kind of silly to watch, but you know, I if you guys are here, I mean, I love it, but I don't really expect anyone to show up. But just in case you're here and you're wondering what the hell's going on, I'm putting together notes for my essay exam tomorrow. Most of the time, the exams since college has went async has kind of been, well, async, except for this very special class. Let's just say, you know, this class kind of requires me to write an essay under a time limit. So he kind of releases the prompt at like, my professor releases the prompt at like 8 and like sets a time limit for like 3 hours, and you just kind of have to like write an essay. And you know, I figured why not just do most of the work up front and create these little touch points. So basically, I could just open this little block tomorrow when I start writing the essay, and have all these nodes that I can use. By the way, I notice I say the word nodes, not notes. Nodes, because these little things, these little blocks, kind of link to ideas or things within my Rome database that will possibly be useful when I have to write the argument tomorrow. And this is for my ethics class. And as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, my professor really is the analytical sort. Like, he doesn't really like it when you write about how like certain ethical principles overlap, how, you know, there's a little bit of subjectivity between them. He's all about looking at all the definitions, thinking of ideal cases, and saying that, you know, our path to the good life, or shall I say, you know, an ethical disposition, is by striving for that ideal, and we're not necessarily concerned about much else other than that. So, you know, to each his own way of practicing philosophy. It's not really what I probably would do on my own, but you know, you gotta do what you need to do. Okay, great. So utilitarianism, consequentialism, done. Right now we're moving on to categorical imperative. So I mean, this essay exam is just based on the unit of like ethical principles. So right now you're just seeing a lot of the overarching ideas around value theory and philosophy. Just to give everyone sort of a nice little overview, as I mean, I have this little page that kind of defines most of these things. The big umbrella that kind of takes you into cultural relativism, ethical subjectivism, logical relativism, blah blah blah, is really moral relativism, right? And apparently there are, I say apparently because these are all just philosophical assertions that people pontificate about. So, I mean, I don't know. It's philosophy is amazing to me because it's like an infinite game that never seems to end. It's kind of fun, kind of funny, watching people argue about stuff. But I don't know. It's kind of cool. You know, who doesn't like a job that you know that never goes out of fashion? And you got early moral theory. You have the idea of eudaimonia, which is Aristotle's ethics. Turns out that's not going to really be on the exam itself, so I don't really write any notes about it. But I actually quite like this idea of eudaimonia. Of course, a lot of these things tend to be a little bit dated. I mean, a lot of ethics, a lot of the stuff that I've learned so far, assume that humans are rational beings, and in fact, they make a lot of assertions based on the fact that humans are more rational than say what philosophers like to define as non-human animals. But we know recently, and I mean in contemporary times, that that simply isn't true, which is interesting. I mean, I have not been satisfied with this ethical class so far because I have not been presented a case where we assume that humans are irrational, but not necessarily as beasts, but necessarily as people with different values. Actually, I'm gonna stop myself right there. I think there's actually one person who does this, and we're gonna talk. We're gonna go into him later, and that's W.D. Ross's prima facie duties. I'm probably not pronouncing this right, but his ideas on deontology might actually be a little bit more practical. Actually, we're going to deontology right now. We're going to talk about Immanuel Kant's Categorical Imperative. Okay. See, here's the thing. My professor has very specific ways of he wants us to present the formulations for the categorical imperative. And the categorical imperative actually has a bunch of, formulations, as they would call it. I don't like all these names. I keep doing this. Categorical imperative. 9 mentions. Let's see. Okay. Get us to see our own behavior in less personal terms and see its limitations. So these are the formulations, but I want to see the formulations at a glance. I'm pretty sure I put it together. Formulations. Hello. Yes, this might be it. Excellent. Great. Don't you love it when you find something you need? All right, so let's look at let's just create a block over here for categorical imperative. See, this is my only problem with using blocks as the cool kids would do. I mean, usually you'll just like do square brackets and do categorical imperative, but I mean, it's cool to use blocks now, so I'm using blocks. So there are a couple of formulations you can use. He didn't really specify which ones you have to use, but I just like putting it all here and figuring out what works well with the words that are present in my essay. Act only as an action by which you can at the same time will that it should become universal law, act in a way that you should treat humanity, whether in your own person or the person of another, always as an end and simply never as a means. See, this runs essentially very counter to utilitarianism. Because let's see here. There you go. So it consists of using personas as a means rather than an end itself. So it conflicts with categorical imperative. I'm just gonna make a quick note here. Conflicts with categorical imperative. Okay. Great. Sweet. Close that all out. All right, so we need these formulations, and what else do we need? Let's see. should be presented in 3 parts, quoting the formulation. So coming up with these, explain what it does to universalize. Okay, how to universalize the maxim. Whatever your choice is, you're only being asked. You're going to do the same thing. You know, this is what I don't like about like this philosophy class. It's just so many definitions, and I kind of just want to break out of it. Like, I want to figure out, like, okay, so you're talking about all these definitions, but like, what does it actually mean to apply them? And I guess this is what the essay exam is for, because we will be presented a case study, and we have to, you know, basically tear apart and like think about like basically tear apart the various perspectives, the various things that people want to do, and figure out like based on like different principles, like what would be correct in that sense. Kind of like being a lawyer, but you know, I have no interest in that. This is just fun for me. What it means to treat someone as an end or a mean. Okay, actually, this would have been useful. Like, I was spending time figuring out how to like. I was spending time figuring out how to like bring some examples to the table in utilitarianism, and I believe I can do the same here. Yes, and then or mean. Why am I copying this? Let's just do this. So yeah, sometimes I don't really know when I should be using a block reference, when I should be kind of writing something new. When I say blah 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 blah. Okay, let's see. What it means to treat someone as an end or mean. Pretty sure I wrote about this somewhere in the categorical imperative notes. Action, formulations. This is what am I talking? This is the block here. I'm an idiot. May matter when. Okay, this is not covered, but essentially Ross has a refinement of the of Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative, where Immanuel Kant assumes that, you know, the maxims. This maxim is absolute. Ross says that there are certain and states that there are certain contexts and there are certain situations where the consequences may matter when it comes to having to apply these things. And, you know, he has a list of duties that that you might or might not necessarily gravitate more towards, and those essentially become your moral compass. It's a form of sort of ethical relativism, but I don't know. It's kind of falls within a categorical imperative, at least for what we're interested in for this essay in this class. Feel regardless. Yeah, see, so it's categorical imperative makes a fairly strong claim that if you fail at the formulation, you have failed. You know, doesn't matter like what situation it is. You know, even if you were like trying to save like someone's life, like doesn't matter. You know. Yes, this is very important. Animals. Categorical imperative does not apply to animals, at least according to Kant. I wish I could pull out the exact quotes, but trust me, you're not too interested in that, because it's so hard to read. When you treat someone for who they are, you treat them with dignity. When someone is treated with dignity, you're treating them as a person. Is this a formulation? Why is it here? Never mind. I'm just gonna put this here just in case I need to qualify what that means. I'm just gonna put it here actually. Humans grow over time. Blah blah blah. Yep. Opponent. This concept is. Oh, this is utilitarianism. This is the third one. You could. Legislative universal laws. Yeah. Do I want it? No, I don't really like it. It's not very descriptive as to what's going on over here. I hate it when philosophy uses like big words like maxims or like axioms and stuff like and words like that. I get it. I get that they mean something, but I don't know. It just feels like 20th century writing to me. So what's our yeah, see, so this is important. So categorical imperative does assume that we as human beings are completely rational beings. Utilitarianism says that we are not just rational, but we have free will, which everyone's free to discuss and argue whether or not that's true. I don't think we do, but it's my personal feeling. Oh god, I still don't have anything what it means to treat someone as an ant or mean. I actually find it hard to believe that I didn't really write any notes on this, so I'm just gonna like dig into the lecture notes because this is just a block within the lecture note. Represent duty ethics. You do it will, not rewards or consequences. You decide what you are not allowed to use consequences to decide what is right. Oh yes. This is very important because we want to understand that utilitarianism and consequentialism is incommensurable. This is I'm actually gonna put this as a larger parent point to connect both the utilitarianism idea and categorical imperative. Okay, yeah, I think it's really important to put between them. It will become very useful when I'm writing the essay. Because when you're a utilitarian, you're thinking about what can I get out of it? What is the utility in this? I mean, and if you do subscribe to the GHP principle, which is Bentham's formulation, then the idea is pleasures, maximum pleasure, maximum happiness. But if you are Mill, then you would say like intellectual pleasures above all, and that is kind of considering the ends before the means. The categorical imperative. The categorical imperative is much more concerned with duty ethics, like saying that you remain dutiful to these formulations, which is to do unto others what you want others to do unto you, as your duty. And if you fall outside of that, it doesn't matter like if you're doing it under any context or circumstance that might justify it, you're wrong. We're going to dig into deontology in just a second, because there's actually a refinement of this, which I find easier to swallow. You treat someone to blah, blah, blah. See, I still don't... I still need what it means to treat someone as an ant or a mean. And, I mean, if... moral binding, let's go on reason. Goodwill is our character. We will use reason. The will is good in itself. See, this is not very... this is not very... I don't know. Maybe it sounded great in the 20th century, but this... Me being the cynic, I just look at this and go like, what? It's not possible. You do have goodwill, not rewards or consequences. We try. But, I mean, if everyone... I feel like that's too hard of a bar. I'm just going to copy this just in case I need it. That you're going to naturally gravitate towards what's right. It kind of feels like... It has hints of... has hints of natural law theory, which essentially means that you subscribe to the idea that because you were created by God, you're capable of rewind. God created you, and because God is the ultimate virtuous being, you would hence encapsulate his best qualities, and hence as a result, if you act in the will of God, in the will as a believer, you would do the right things. But 21st century, ton of problems about that. But just want to give some context. What does it mean to treat someone as an answer? I mean, see, this is the one thing I've realized that Rome isn't very good at, and that is I have grown so increasingly dependent on this knowledge graph. I could totally sit here and spend the last 30 seconds thinking about various examples, but no, I'm just insisting that there's something here. I definitely wrote it. God, it's kind of funny, isn't it? Moral imperatives, foundational, blah 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 blah. Okay. She thinks they're morally binding, universal reason, good rules of character. This is what I love about streams. I can totally just think out loud and make sounds while I do it. I don't really need to rehearse or write a script. It's kind of nice. It's great. Next time when I do this, I gotta say that this ends up becoming more of a philosophy podcast of sorts. I don't know. You can't really demonstrate what you're doing in Rome without actually giving your viewers some context, anyways. Because animals do not process, they cannot apply. Yes, common human reason according. Yes, this is very important. This is very important. Great. Formulations universalize what it means to treat someone as a mean. God damn it! I just can't find it. Okay, what it means to treat someone as an answer mean. Okay, this is probably gonna be the easiest way out. See, I know all these, but I need an example. Stem worship. Maybe? No? Yeah, I mean, when you treat someone, this is completely original block, so when you treat someone else as a mean, you leave, yeah, you do, you prioritize, yeah, actually, I'm just gonna borrow this idea. It means you consider that someone's due and owed more consideration. You think about their personhood. Treat someone when you treat someone as a means, you. Oh wait! I do think I have an example. I believe I was watching a video once on Kant's moral philosophy. Okay, let's see. Moral is rational. Morality equals to rationality. It's the thing you do at all times regardless of circumstance. Oh, this is actually the great one. Oh god. This is actually the good block with all this stuff that I really need. I'm not saying you should do something. You're saying you should anyway. It makes sense. Okay, I don't actually need this. God, did I really not put it here? I believe it was something to do with like someone at a bar. If you go to a bar, or like bartender. Oh, there you go. Oh, what? Okay, interesting. I encapsulated it in here. Your ruling doesn't make sense and rule everything to do. Okay. Actually, I'm just gonna copy this. Because I mean, you don't really have time to come up with like these creative little sentences anyway. So I had to call it back. So it should become universal law. So we should this one. It is being more also includes selfless and moral voices. Yes. You treat someone as a mean. Treat a bartender as an end, but more of a means to an. Yeah. So when you go to a bar, you don't really talk to the bartender. I mean, you pretty much just go there to get a beer, and hence, the bartender can feel like utility, and hence you're treating them as a means. But Kant actually allows you to do that. I mean, he doesn't explicitly say bartender, but he does, in his fancy philosopher language, he does say that it does become a problem once you step on their ends. So if the bartender is not producing the service voluntarily, then that becomes a problem because the bartender, as a rational being, made the choice that he wanted to be a bartender, and hence, as a result, while you might use him as a means, that is the ends he wants. So that's perfectly okay according to Kant. Just so you know, I'm trying to qualify a lot of these things, because you could get to a point where you are either being too specific, or you overgeneralize certain ideas, and that can be a problem. At least for this professor. I keep saying this, but my professor, my ethics professor, is an analytical professor. He is very interested in what the definitions are and how you kind of tear them apart and build arguments with those tiny little axioms, rather than broad stroke claims of subjectivity of whatever. For example, you could kind of take, in the past 45 minutes, how long have we been streaming? For the last 45 minutes, for the past 45 minutes, we've kind of gone through some of these principles, and we have understood that a lot of them kind of overlap in some sense. Like, for example, categorical imperative, it's kind of ethical subjectivism, but not necessarily is. The natural law theory, for example, has the categorical imperative, the idea that this formulation on its own act only according to the maxim, by which you can at the same time will that it should become universal law, sounds a lot like the what's being taught in the Gospels, right? Essentially that you do unto others what you want others to do unto you. And you see some of these intersectionalities, but analytical philosophers do not. It's not I do not care. They are not interested in that discussion. That is more for what they call the continental philosopher. And I've just learned those two terms from another professor, another philosophy professor, a couple of days ago. So I might be butchering the definition, but so take of it what you will. But I just wanted to qualify it for everyone's knowledge. Okay, moving on. Next, we're gonna do setting an example for people. What we do contributes to normal behavior. We get to decide what behavior we want to normalize. That's actually pretty good. I'm actually still with those. Sometimes we might have to do things against our own desires. Yep, that's true. Categorical imperative. Great, cool. So I think we're down to our last one. Oh shit, where did prepare notes. Tips. There you go. We're down to our last one, which is prepare definition explanations for ethical frameworks listed at the bottom of sample exam question. Alright, now I need to pull out my sample exam question. Just give me 1 sec, because I believe it's somewhere. I'm doing it on my other display right now, so I'm just going to pull it right up. I'm just going to copy what those things are and pull it right up, just so that I don't run into any trouble with, copyright or whatever. Which I honestly think is kind of silly. Who wants to copy something out of a, exam booklet? It's kind of, or I practice exam booklet. It's not very useful. Sorry. All right, sweet. Okay, so we want IB to IVA. So these are actually like the Roman alphabets, but I'm too lazy to format it nicely. IB to IBA. So okay. So he's based. Okay, so at about. So let me explain what this is. So essentially, in the practice exam question, my professor did list a bunch of things that you should know about, and you need to prepare your definitions and explanations with them. And I'm just gonna copy them on the notes here to make sure that we have it all down. Deontology, IB to IVA. Okay, great. Okay, I'm just gonna put it here. Let's look at this. IB, we got cultural relativism. Do we have the definition of cultural relativism? We do. Can we explain the ethical framework for cultural relativism? Yeah, kind of. We have the definitions, kind of. Let's just make doubly sure, make sure we don't have anything else that we could put in here that will be useful during the essay. Monistic cultural norms and public opinion, I think that's an important thing, qualifier. Cultural customs created by public opinion. Actually, I could probably refine those for specific monistic culture. This might not necessarily be true anymore, by the way. I mean, the world is increasingly becoming more subjective. I mean, the entire idea of postmodernism is just based on that whole shtick. Jihad is a call that you mean that conflicts with what God defines. Okay, this is not really. Okay. I think we have what we need for cultural relativism. That's great. Religious moral views, religious views and ethics. We need to be able to define and explain. Okay, so we can define. We have some examples here. Let's see if I could find some explanations, perhaps to beef it up. Perhaps some other mentions of it. It's an article of faith, not rationally defensive. Oh, okay, this is good. So it's article of faith, not based on rationality. It's very important qualifier. Does not ever make a claim that I just say what God. Oh, this is actually very important too. Okay. This makes a claim that God blah blah blah. Something more because God approves of it. Okay. Great. All right. That's divine command theory. Let's make sure I got nothing on natural law. First, natural law can contain precepts, but they are all secondary to the primary ones. They are known to all. Between primary and principles or practical speculative, all the others are secondary. I really did not like Summa Theologica. Not because I don't believe in God. I'm indifferent, but it was just really hard to read and understand what the hell was going on. Okay, this is really a couple to action. Okay, I think this might be. Oh yes, this is actually kind of important. So you're saying that because you're an agent of God, you're a believer of God, and you're acting according to the love of God, and hence whatever you do would automatically be moral. So hence as a result, it's not conscious effort, and it's speculative, universal laws on the other hand, do I want to put this in? Is this important? Alright, you know what? I'm just going to put this little block in. I can decide tomorrow whether or not it's important to me. Cool. Religious views, done. Boom, delete. Utilitarianism, Bentham's GHP. J.S. Mill's qualitative level of pleasure and happiness. Alright, let's see. Just make sure we got everything we need. Greatest happiness principle. We need to define what's greatest happiness, what's greatest number, and what's sentient beings. I believe if I open this up, I do actually have them here already. Sum of happiness, community of sentient beings. That's actually kind of important. You know, honestly, it's kind of pointless that I kind of pull some of these blocks here, but you know, whatever flattens the graph, that would help me write my essay tomorrow would help a lot. Let's see. Do I have everything down for this? Yes. So you have to define and be able to explain it. Oh God, I think my neighbors are drilling again. If you're hearing that, I apologize. I'm doing my best. I have air conditioning unit that sounds like a jet engine about to take off, and I have someone drilling upstairs, so it's great. A lot of very desirable background white noise. Okay, let's see. J.S. Mill. I think we just need to be able to talk about its weaknesses and his qualification. I think we're good here. All right, deontological moral theories. Kant's categorical imperative, ends in themselves versus means to an end. Very important, personhood versus end dignity. I believe, I just want to make sure that I covered every, oh God, what did I do? Oh no. I just want to make sure that I covered everything here. I want to open this in sidebar because my shift click isn't working. Okay, this has never happened before. Okay, great. Essay exam. I just want to make sure that, because we covered most of the ontology in this lecture, so I want to make sure that we got everything I need down for at least categorical imperatives. Foundational guidelines, moral sense, foundational moral maxim based on application, categorical these morals, okay. Naturally known, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, this feels like it should be important. Okay, but this is getting a little big. You're gonna naturally, okay, if you have this in morals, you feel way to go outlaws. No, I'm just gonna have a what is it block and put this all down. Categorical imperative. This is not grammatically correct, but I just wanted to reference it to the rationality page. Okay. These two are fairly big blocks. I'm not very happy about them, but, he spent a lot of time talking about this categorical imperative, so I assume that, it's going to be quite important. Personhood and dignity. Okay. So that is something we didn't really talk about or didn't really incorporate in our notes. Let's see. Dignity. Yes. Did I? I feel like I've referenced this already. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I did actually put it in there. Personhood, dignity. Am I satisfied with what I have? It's kind of like preparing for a war, It's like, you gotta put all your, you got to prepare all your equipment, and you're thinking to yourself, man, have I brought enough ammo? Have I brought enough mosquito repellent? Speaking from personal experience, as a soldier, gotta think about mosquito repellent. Very important stuff. As a person. Do I have that there? No, I don't. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna put it in. Okay, I'm just gonna put it there, and that might be good enough. All right. This is fun. I really got to show. I mean, I wasn't really intending to show off what I have here in Rome. I mean, clearly, as you can see, my multiple column sidebar is broken, so this is more embarrassing than anything. But I just kind of really want to show how this application has really changed the way I do work. I mean, you combine that with being able to write essays asynchronously, or at least do an essay exam on your own time, rather than have to go to a hall without any notes. This kind of really changed the game for me, and I just kind of want to take some time. Studying is kind of boring on its own. Kind of streaming it is actually kind of fun. And so what have we learned? Well, I had a lot of fun, at least. I don't care if no one actually watched this, because by allowing myself to verbalize a lot of the things that I am going through, or trying to explain and trying to contextualize some of these ideas to a potentially hypothetically viewing audience, it kind of helps me learn as well, to kind of really think about my ideas and simulate how I would think about them in an essay, in an exam setting. Like, whatever I just did is probably how the sort of neurological routes I'm gonna take anyways. When I'm doing my essay tomorrow, my exam tomorrow. Essay exams annoy me. Timed essays annoy me, but you don't really you don't really get to pick everything you want to do in life. But before I go into more rambling, I'm gonna end the stream at an hour dead. For this one viewer who has been here the whole time, I thank you. You're very patient. The chat is radio silent. I just assume everyone agrees with what I'm saying, or at least they're silently disagreeing. And if you're watching this delayed on YouTube, I don't know how you made it to this point. Or you probably just skipped ahead and it's like, oh, what does Jervis say at the end? What's the point of all this? Well, the point is, I gotta have some fun studying. I verbalized a lot of the ideas, and that helped me absorb a lot of them a lot better. And I had fun doing it, honestly. I feel like this is a lot better than if I kind of did it on my own, Anyways, yep, that's it. It's an hour dead. I would talk to everyone soon. Perhaps in the next essay exam preparation stream, or whenever I'm, studying for something again, or actually putting together a head page or index page. That might be something interesting. Anyways, yeah, I'm now rambling on, but that's it. Thanks for watching.